Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. Zoo on a Thursday afternoon, the 13th of August, 2026, episode 98, as we barrel into it. And let's get started. Let's get down now. If you, no doubt you could have heard that great song. How good was that? Say hello. Just say hello. Grab somebody and say hello. Biz Vegas is in the house. Welcome, Brisbane. Yes. Oh, look at this. All is in Balranald. Loud and clear, sunshine. That's all we need. That's all we need. If we've got people listening in those places, then we are back on Blue Star. Now, if you don't know about that saying that Dr. Zoo loves to use, it's a saying out of the great movie Wall Street. Back on Blue Star. Have a look at it. Have a look. Now, I haven't got any news on Austrac. That's laying low. We've got nothing back. I did say we confirmed receipt of information from Austrac, which was pretty well done ASAP from them on Sunday. The Sunday that's just gone past. WA, welcome WA, Toowoomba. I was just looking at a race there at Toowoomba before, and I know that was Rockhampton. Sorry, Toowoomba, it was Rockhampton. Great friend of ours, Billy Healy, one of his horses. Gin and Juice had a win. Congratulations, Billy. Billy did an enormous amount of work there for the team just before Alligator Blood became successful. And without his preparation, we wouldn't have banked 9.1 millions of dollars. Millions, tax-free. Haven't got their grubby hands on that yet, the governments. That's the racing industry's biggest upside. Yes, huge risks, but biggest upside. Sunny Thailand. Welcome, Thailand. I was reading about Thailand the other day. You guys are in for a real treat. There is an enormous amount of interest in the CGT structuring out of Thailand. We've actually started work with some advisors from Thailand. We got an approach. You have 0% capital gains tax, teaching the Australian government a lesson, a big lesson. There will be a massive inflow of funds into Thailand, no doubt about it. 0%. How good's that? That is going to be huge coming in from Thailand. Now, last night, just to bring you up to speed, those that are just quickly joining now, no news from Austrac, which is great. Great because they've got all the material. We're very excited about it. We've started implementing some of the behinds of the scene information that they had set out in their big 44-page policy document, which is pretty impressive, I've got to say. We're going to pat ourselves on the back. We'll know soon enough any changes we can accommodate if need be. But the boys behind the scenes are really on fire, and I mean that big time, because it is absolutely staggering what's coming for Zutopia. Now, last night, Dr. Zoo, I've got to tell you, holy dooly, people, just sit back. Just think about what Dr. Zoo is about to say. The hard work, whilst we have not been idle for 1 second. I'm not talking about Dr. Zoo, I'm talking about the devs, our great CTO, Robert Novak, beavering away on concepts you wouldn't believe where it's heading for the Zucoins and the split chain side of things. And that's, go and have a look at that. There's a lot of information, again, for those coming in new. We're actually getting pummeled all around the world from, you wouldn't believe it, the amount of inquiries Dr. Zoo has had in the last 2 weeks. And I think a lot of it's triggered from the Austrac, because we're sitting out here waiting to, begging and pleading to become regulated. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Well, that begging and pleading is generating extraordinary interest from all levels in terms of big hedge funds out of New York. We've got developers all around the world. We have people coming at us thick and fast. Asia is looking huge because you know what? Everything around us is collapsing. Not that Dr. Zoo was a Nostradamus by any stretch. He's not a prophet, but he could see the writing on the wall with a lot of this stuff. And what a big week it's been in the crypto space, in the negative sense, but positive for us. Absolutely magnificent for all you early adopters. And as we said, unlike some people in this country that want to leave others behind, Dr. Zoo doesn't want to leave anybody behind. We all get the same opportunity, which is why we push hard and worked our way through the Austrac. We will get that registration. Don't you panic about that. That'll give us a huge uplift, a big boost, especially when people sit up and take notice around the world that here's this wonderful, exciting, incredible marketplace, peer-to-peer. Not a single coin held by the exchange or the marketplace. Fiat moving swiftly between buyers and sellers. And look out, the way in which those instant notifications work, which is all, you can circle back and get all the information you like from myzucoins.org. You can ask till the cows come home all the queries you want on z8digital.com. You can see the wealth of information on zucoins.com. You've got zukaz.com. You can go to the original sites there and look at the Zoo Vision. All that's starting to pan out now, people. And, by the way, Zutopia.com. More and more I look at that site, I tell you what, the tingles and the shivers start. It is really, really cool. Now, just on that, last night, team got together and said it was time for Dr. Zoo. Download a Zutopia app and actually use it. Test exactly the processes with the new app, because you've got the old one there that's been live, except for the actual live trading, which we'll switch that on to all those in government, etc. We haven't got any trading happening, so there's nothing to be breached or any naughtiness happening. We're waiting for your regulatory authority, that registration. As soon as that comes in, it will be flicked. But the boys wanted Dr. Zoo to work his way through the app. Now, I've got to say, I'm going to confess something here, people. I've been allowing and watching from behind the scenes everybody, particularly during the soft launch of Zutopia. I was more interested in the processes, the way in which we can control people's ability not to lose coins and money and not have any reversals and chargebacks and all the issues that we see confronting the world of crypto, especially with these the operational way in which these exchanges have been working for a while, and the exchanges that are going broke and bust. Now, Dr. Zoo tested the app, and I'm going to say this, 2 words, what it's like. This is a personal opinion, so don't go off there half-cocked and say, blah, blah, blah. This is Dr. Zoo's personal opinion. It's not financial advice. It's nothing to do with that. We're not crossing any grey areas here. We're just sharing the wisdoms of Dr. Zoo's personal thoughts about the Zutopia trading app. Let me say this. It is shit hot. Shit hot. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait to see the extraordinary processes of you guys and others around the world are going to absolutely love the exciting process of, it's like fishing. You go fishing, you create your order and you put it out there and you do what you like with it. And we're going to have some really exciting stuff on top down the road, by the way. Gamification is going to be unbelievable. It'll be so addictive in a positive way. But, oh man, I mean, the onboarding side, you've still got to go through the KYC with Stripe. That can be a little painful, but that's life. That's how it is, because that is part and parcel of what we're going through now to really make sure that Austrac is happy and delighted as one of the few enterprises that can say safely that we're doing the right thing for everybody. We want good money in and good money out. Not interested in all this other crap. But the process itself, once you start listing and trading, and there's a few tweaks that Dr. Zoo recommended, just a few little touch-ups, just a few little things that, make it a little bit more colourful and a couple of bits and pieces when you look at the listings and when you see the trade affected, and notifications work brilliantly. The flow now, without that copy and paste, is worth every single second of the 9 months of hard work that our CTO put in to smashing to bits the way in which notifications works. From memory, about 350,000 lines of code down to 20-odd thousand, might have been less than that, and it keeps continuing to get better and better. Scalability, because if it's absolutely shit hot now, and we're just talking coins and making wealth for all of us, imagine with the flow that's coming on in relation to the power of tokenization and what we're doing compared to everybody else around the world that is struggling. There is a lot of damage to the brands and reputations of crypto, and we are coming out of the blocks. We are the bears. Think of yourself as a big bear. We're just scratching ourselves now as we wake up and come out of those caves. That's us. That's Zucoins. That's the Zuconian community. People are losing money left, right, and centre and panicking and all the rest of it that's happening. The only bloke that's trying to get his stock price up a bit higher again is our great mate Elon. Saw a great meme last night. A great Melbourne welcome and Sydney welcome. Fantastic. Melbourne, there's a bit of hope down there. The lights are turned back on. Let's change that city back into the phenomenal, unbelievable city that it once was. There's a few big issues now. You've got debt and all that rest of it that's gone on down there. Got to get more machete bins to get rid of those machetes, clean the joint up, but it can become one of the greatest cities again. Sports, finance, business. Doctors who had a great time down in Melbourne in the 80s and 90s, 2000s, and all went off a cliff. But anyway, let's bring back the excitement. Sydney, incredible, bit busy up there, but there you go. Now, back to the Zutopia app. Unbelievable. It absolutely drags you in. You look at it, you become addicted. You want to keep waiting for the next trade, whether you buy or sell. Doesn't matter. And I'm going to make this claim. We talk about Dr. Zoo desperately wanting to see this pricing because we now know we can deliver. We can deliver comfortably, easily. Mass adoption, that'll happen. The ability to easily open a Zucoin wallet and see it there every time you open it up without all the mess that happens with apps and things these days. I just tried to download as a comparison an app. Won't say the brand, but oh my Lord, it was a nightmare. But not the Zutopia app for trading. And it will come with all sorts of add-ons that you guys will want to be part and parcel of it. I see the news that's come out in relation to Pokemon Go. Dr. Zoo's been on about this for years and years, which is Zukaz on steroids. And Pokemon Go is now going through another generational shift. Pokemon cards, even Dr. Zoo's grandkids are into it now. Is that mind-blowingly unbelievable? All because of hunting and collecting. And when you start to hunt and collect real value that we've dreamed about, that we want merchants to obviously pump their dollar values direct to you as a consumer, and you can sell it on Zutopia easily, having seen what Zutopia actually can achieve now. Welcome, Perth. Welcome, Perth. Love Perth. Perth is another great Australian city built on the back of resources, minerals, wealth. Every 20 or 30 odd years, all of a sudden there's a surge in some new commodity over there that shoots Perth through the roof. Had some nice dinners over there back in the 80s. Incredible. Little company called Forsyth Oil and Gas turned into a multi-million dollar company on the back of gold back then. Huge. I think it was 200,000 ounces of gold production. But there you go. Now, the app. People, if you haven't already, just prepare yourself for battle and get into the Zutopia app. Complete your KYC. Now, that can be, as I said, it just takes a bit of time filling out the bits and pieces and what goes on. But that's modified as best we can because it is governed by Stripe and Austrac. Once you get past that, it is a dream run. Just go in there and place, just, create an order, get ready for battle, because when it goes, it's going to go like the clappers. And as I said, Dr. Zoo has gone on about which he's going to get. That's his little, you got to set a goal in life, a benchmark. First goal was to stay alive. That was important. Now we've achieved that. We move on to the goal stream. That is the mission. 1,000 a coin. That's my personal opinion. Don't go carrying on about it and, he said this, he said that. That's what he said. That was Dr. Zoo said. Why? Because I'm telling you now, given the circumstances of the coins, the ones that Dr. Zoo has tucked away through his trusts, there's a little bit of a sad moment there last night. I've got to say, I'm going to share this with you, a little bit of sad moment on the part of Dr. Zoo. He looked back and thought, how good is this? It's taken so long. It's been a long journey on the cash flow burn rates and all the rest of it. And Dr. Zoo actually wished he had more coins. It was a bit of a sad moment, but look, that's life. As I said, 10 coins will change your life, and a lot more than that will really change your life. But that's what happens when you're an entrepreneur and a founder, and you've got a burn rate that's so high, and you've spent $55 million and all the rest of it. But it's a cheap entry into a product that is sensational. Just wish we'd had more coins. And now, so we've got to look at other ways and build that up and create that liquidity pool that we've talked about. Won't share that with you today, but that's one of the options. But Zutopia becomes this powerhouse trading. There is no reason whatsoever that we can create a protection mechanism, not just for Zucoins, not just for Zutokens, but also, as I talked with one of our quite big, substantial coin holders up north in Queensland there. He knows who he is. They know who they are. And we talked about wrapping and protecting some of the existing crypto into a Zucoin protection smart contract, which then can trade readily and securely on Zutopia, which explodes the growth of turnover. If that happens, I'm telling you now, people, you add Dr. Zoo's lottery in there. That's been always on the agenda. Takeovers and corporate acquisitions that we want to get back into, and assets. Everybody can get involved and create unbelievable products that are all built around the core of the system. The core of the system. Not like Vitalik announcing yesterday, he's in trouble. Now, Vitalik, for those who don't know, is the founder of Ethereum, and they're trying to catch up now. They had their little fun. They've had their game. They've made their monies. They've lost people's billions of dollars, and they haven't got the infrastructure there. He's now worried about quantum. He's worried about scalability. He's worried about everything. They didn't build it right in the first place. There's an old saying, you build it on sand, and guess what happens? It's not a pleasant journey back down in through the sand. But if you build it on solid rock and build the foundation up, be patient, which is what you guys have done. You've been patient, you'll get it. And I'm going to say this right now. Doesn't matter about, this is not advice, right? You can blow your money up your ass as much as you can like anybody else, or you can make a fortune. But Dr. Zoo will be a billionaire, plus. May not be the richest man in the world, but he's going to be one of the richest that's very happy indeed, because the product will prove itself and make other people money. It'll be sharing it. It won't be needing to worry about getting, spacecraft out there to Mars and all the rest of it, or numbers that Dr. Zoo cannot make sense of, even though there was a big jump. The old dead cat bounce on SpaceX the other night. Yes, it picked up another $200 billion. It's just staggering to think no one wants to read a balance sheet or a P&L these days. It's all too hard. Let's just speculate. Let's just create those tulips. Let's just go back to the 1929s or 28s, really, when that excitement was happening on margin lending and speculation. Let's pretend that we're not in a housing drop and wealth's changing. But let's create real value. Let's create real value and go from there. So let's get into it, people. But unbelievable. Super pumped. You'll love the app. You'll trade. Others will. Onboarding. Absolute piece of piss. I cannot be happier with what we did by just the elimination of the copy and paste and educating people on that. That's a Gonski, and we are truly getting into it that you'll love it. Oh yeah, the little tweaks over the next few days as well. Nothing spectacular. Back end is superb. Riley and the team on the Zutopia front and the boys. Now, I'm going to send a cheerio out to one of our great guys, been with us for many years. He is a genius at the presentation of materials and designs. Won enormous amount of media awards internationally, which you may not be aware of, people, but through the old Zukaz. Remember, Zukaz won the 2020 Business of the Year Innovation Award, so it knows exactly what it's going to be doing. Same with Zari and the International Marketing Awards, both in Australia and overseas. And a cheerio to Vovo. There he is, beavering away in Portugal, of all places. Probably sitting out in the balcony. But there he is, and we are super pleased with what you've done with the Zutopia website. And when we see these upgrades to the Zutopia app, incredible. So here we go. We've got Cool Guru wants to share his half glass emptiness with us. I always like these blokes, because if you don't address the half glass empties, you don't really get to understand the big picture and the visionary things that you can do. But let's go for it. Let's have a look. You know, I enjoy these people. Just sit back, relax. No need to sort of get too wound up with commentary, because a lot of it's can be not factual, and we need to share it. So if we sort that out, then I'm very happy, because the ability to address half glass people is fantastic, because sometimes what they say is spot on, and sometimes you've got to sit back, suck it up, and admit you're wrong, or admit that you haven't done something. Dr. Zoo does that all the time. He's not the bee's knees of getting it right, unlike someone else we know, people, and you know who I'm talking about. Albanese, our great Prime Minister, our illustrious leader, our man that creates friendships through melons, the man that wants to shag other people's other women, etc., and still won't admit that he's wrong, and just say, listen, I'm sorry. I am sorry, because I was actually referring to avocados and not melons. Well, that's what Dr. Zoo's view would have been, but that's how you ruined international relationships and all the rest of it. So let's just have a look. Let's just tackle a little one here from Cool Guru. Now, I'll quote what Cool Guru is saying for those that can't read here, because they might be on the site where you can. You can go on, and once you join up, you'll see there's a chat session there, people. So if you need Dr. Zoo or get his attention, just put up your little question there, and can't do them all, because there's a lot that sort of spins through the system, which means that it gets a bit out of hand. But let's have a look. Here we go. The quote is, Cool Guru. After checking AUSTRAC registrations, it appears that CoinSpot got itself registered on the 4th of the 4th, 2018 as a VASP, and on the 8th of the 5th, 2018 is specifically described as a DCE registration date. So Alan Endres spent money on solicitors to avoid getting registered was a big mistake. CoinSpot can currently operate as a cryptocurrency exchange in Australia, buy and sell crypto, swap one cryptocurrency for another, and they currently advertise more than 480 cryptocurrencies. And here we are, still suffering Al Indra's decision back in 2018 not to register. Now, Cool Guru, I don't really like to embarrass you in this thing, but this is what happens when you give someone a taste of a little bit of law and they think they understand what's happening, and it can get a bit ugly because you just haven't really got your head on exactly what happened in that process as to those particular entities. And it does get out of hand. I know, I appreciate, understand what you're saying, but you've got to do your homework properly. But I'm glad you did ask those questions, and you have raised these things about the 2000. I think you raised it last time. You seem to have your head stuck on 2018 for some reason. That was when Dr. Zoo sort of suggested to you that maybe, just maybe, we tackle the ability for Dr. Zoo to consider, things like the time travel. I think we talked about that. We talked about time travel, and we said to ourselves, let's sort of wander down the time travel road. But here's the answer clearly for you, and this is important that you understand this, because what happened is, firstly, the reason that CoinSpot and the reason that other crypto exchanges were registered in 2018, because the law in 2018, leading up to October of 2025, is to do with, and you're quite right, they are called DCEs. That was the digital currency exchanges, as it was referred to back then. So that's a digital currency exchange that we refer to. Now, if you go to that particular time in place, Zutopia, right? Firstly, it didn't exist back then. Now, I know that's hard to believe, but we didn't have Zutopia on the table. We were looking to register the coins with other exchanges. And if you go to the Zucoin.com site, you will find Dr. Zoo is on the record as outlining exactly the commencement of when we wanted to build Zutopia, and build it in a way that solved the problems, because Dr. Zoo tipped out $1 million or thereabouts of to list these coins on various exchanges. And there's about 10 of them from memory. I think about 6 of them gone bust since, and 4 of them were in the top 4 in the world. More recently, you had Bitmart and you had Bitfinex. That's gone because that got caught up in a fraud. And there's actually a doco on that one, on Bitfinex. That's a nice little show. That's on Netflix, I think. There's a good show about that one. So if you look at the structure back then, we didn't have to register anything. What we had was compliance with ASIC, that the nature of Zucoins itself was never and still isn't, a financial product. So the registrations you're referring to there, Cool Guru, is totally irrelevant. It's got nothing to do with us. So there's no matter what sort of lawyers and things you think about, there was nothing we could do because we weren't involved in building anything that needed registration. So you weren't suffering, interestingly, from Alan Endres, because we don't need to register. That's why you have a thing called complete exemption. If you're not a financial product, from the coin perspective, we ticked that box, and that allowed us to globalize Zucoins, which is why, funnily enough, you can trade to the cows come home, and you have been for 4 odd years now, probably 5 years, directly between Zucoin wallets. So that is the peer-to-peer trading platform, and it allows itself to motor along because it doesn't need the specifications under. And when we talk about the ASIC Act, we've got to dig a little bit deeper, because the only area that you can get caught up in that is if you have things that are under the law that relates to managed investment schemes and non-cash payment facilities, which we don't fall into any of those. So we are and were and still magnificently fully compliant with the corporation's laws. So that's never been a problem for us. Now, the AML Act that Dr. Zhu really honed in on was established on the 1st of July of 2014, and that's the AML and CTF Act of 2006. So they were the amendments that occurred in version number 83 of 2014, and that's when the journey pretty well started in terms of looking at AUSTRAC. AUSTRAC is a different body, in case Cool Guru is not across it, but AUSTRAC's a different body to ASIC, and they are 2 different concepts. One is about money laundering and the way in which you have suspicious transaction reporting. And if you are using cash, you've got transaction reporting as well. And that's another world in itself in terms of the cash reporting. So we had nothing to do with that. And if we did trade on exchanges, the coins, well, then the coins still are exempt from around the world, particularly in the US, where we're not caught up with the Howey test. I'll let you, seeing as you're a good researcher, Cool Guru, I'll let you have a look at the laws in relation to the SEC, which are extensive. And by not having a contractual basis or poolings of monies, etc., we don't get caught with that either. So Zucoins really is measured by the same legal outcomes as Bitcoin. That's why we only compare to Bitcoin, because everything else is nonsense. Staking and all these other bits and pieces and derivatives, they're not shares, they're not securities. They are just the pure digital asset. And because, as you know, when you buy a Zucoin or a Bitcoin, that is the digital asset you've acquired. You run with the up or down of that. You live and breathe based on the demand and supply, which determines the price or the utility. We have utility. Bitcoin doesn't have utility. Ethereum's in all sorts of bother of trouble, and it's got its own problems. Solana, even it had troubles last night. It looked like it got within 4.6% of the entire network going down. Imagine that. Ooly dooly. So that was a beauty. But in terms of the follow through, if you go to that, there was amendments to the AML and CTF Acts of 2006, and that occurred in 2020. That is legislative number 133. And of course, there was another big change in 2024, number 110, and that was on the 31st of March. We then got affected by the 2026 amendments, which is where we are today. So when we started the build of Zutopia, we had the soft launch, and you know very well that the soft launch went from about May of 2025 through to the Well, I think it's all coming back to Dr. Zoo now, but 22nd of December of 2025, and we merrily got going with all of the trading. I think there was about 4 million coins changed hands, and to our Dr. Zoo's surprise, $3 or $4 million of real money. But there were still problems because at that stage we had the copy and paste. We were concerned about the mass adoption. Dr. Zoo is getting older and didn't want to have a separate network that told people how to copy and paste things or use their fat fingers instead of skinny fingers. And really, the workload was built around our great CTO to solve the notifications, which delivers the near perfect instant transactions. There's time clocks in there now that have gone. It is so powerful that no crypto in the world has the ability, and that is whether it's Zucoin wallet to Zucoin wallet or whether you now will see it in full flight as you trade in Zutopia. It is magnificent. There are also controls and checks and balances to make sure that there can be no bots that could be inserted that fiddle with the transaction data, which means that we have as close to perfection of verification of transactions on the split chain. You've got the facility there now with putting in extra information when you do a transaction or when we do it directly through Zutopia, and the long caching as well. All of that pulls it together. It means that we don't have reversals and chargeback. Now, you don't care about reversals and chargebacks because that won't affect your lives. Now, even though Dr. Zoo sadly lost $80,000 in the testing, he lost $80,000. And sometimes some people feel sorry for Dr. Zoo and others just say, well, that's life because Dr. Zoo's built the thing. Because Dr. Zoo will make a bucket load of money through his trusts on Zutopia. No question. This is part and parcel of the upshot of being a billionaire. And some people will say one day, geez, he got it easy. Dr. Zoo got it easy. But if you guys are sitting on 1,000 plus a coin, you won't care. You are early adopters and risk takers, and you will be sitting sweet. New people come involved, and we get turnover and the mass adoptions. And Dr. Zoo, suddenly there's millions of dollars a day in profit. How good would that be? Probably buy a couple of horses every day, actually. I think about it now. And the reason is, don't get me wrong, you've still got to have a tax-free strategy. And there is a business model that does allow for minimising the risks on racehorses, but maximising the tax-free returns. Look at Alligator Blood. That wasn't luck. That was hard work. Alligator Blood was hard work. Pedigree. We've got an incredible product that's been built out called Turfstar. You've got all sorts of exciting stuff there about confirmations and AI and all the rest of it that can look at hundreds of years of pedigrees, and next thing you become a guru of horses. But your objective is tax-free monies because the prize monies are tax-free, the betting is tax-free, and the horse values on pedigrees is tax-free as well. If you happen to jag that big time stallion or fantastic broodmare, and it happens if you focus. Now, the focus is back to the reality of things like what Cool Guru has quite rightly raised. This is just, well, it's not poor research. It's just a lack of understanding as to how the laws operated during that period. And poor old Cool Guru, he thinks everybody's suffering because Alan Lindner is. Well, there's no suffering because that was the law and still is in that time. Now, as you get to the end of the testing phase of Zutopia, and you tick the boxes at the back end and you make it secure, because if you think about it, if the turnover, which we expect on Zutopia, starts to rise from 10 million to 20 million to 50 million a day, and that's in your interest, remember, the greater the turnover, the greater the demand, the increase in price, we all benefit from that, Dr. Zoo included. It gets closer to his Gulfstream. But more importantly, the billionaire status starts to really look pretty sweet. Sweet. And we don't want any whinging. When Dr. Zoo comes out on a show one day and says he's worth $2, $3, $5 billion, live with it, right? That's on the table. He's gone from being a bankrupt, quite happily being a bankrupt there with his great mates, the American presidents. 5 American presidents were bankrupt. Can you believe that? Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant. Imagine that poor bugger. He wins the Civil War as a general, comes out and then goes bankrupt. Unbelievable. But he fought back. Same with Henry Ford. Walt Disney, another great hero of Dr. Zoo's. H.J. Hines. I mean, Dr. Zoo, he's got to be a bit cautious because there is a little bit of a trigger in his gout that happens as a result of tomatoes. But sometimes the old tomato sauce is important. You celebrate with that pie, loves pies. They're a bit dry without tomato sauce, but tomato sauce would not be on Dr. Zoo's pie as we speak because H.J. Hines went bankrupt. Tragic. But you come out of that, you kick some goals, you do some asset protection, which is what has been on Dr. Zoo's educational program for all these young entrepreneurs today. Do not make the mistakes that we older ones went through. Try and listen and learn. Try and put these measures in play. It's not that you want to be naughty. You're not wanting to be naughty. You're just being sensible. Because out there lurking is a nasty. There's someone right now that's half glass empty that wants to take your coins from you. They're out there telling you. So you've got to look at the mechanisms that we've done and put in play that we're better than any crypto. We've put in the two-factor authentication for your benefit. We've got private keys that you can encrypt. You've got download capability. We've got some other tweaks coming that'll be sensational. Robert is working big time at no cost to you guys. Robert, there he is. Actually, reminds me of a young Dr. Zoo because he works about 25 hours a day. God knows how he puts in that extra hour, but he does. He is unbelievable, the things that have been created. And that comes back to the benefits you get from Zutopia. Now, at the end of 2025, Dr. Zoo didn't need registration of Zutopia as a virtual asset service provider. And that terminology, by the way, Cool Guru, was never used back then. That's a new term that's come out of the FATF, which is the international bodies that want this to happen. It's not really driven. All this stuff really, the AML, Dr. Zoo did a bit of homework on this the other day. It's very fascinating. It is extremely, extremely fascinating because a lot of this stuff that's come to Australian laws is governed by international lawmakers on an international scale. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, really, when you think about why are they doing this? You know, why are we governed by the OECD and other countries that are trying to put pressure on our humble little Australian government, and particularly in this instance, which is what I'm leading to, the changes that occurred to the 2006 AML CTF laws, those changes really influenced the great David Pocock and Jackie Lambie. I've been banging on about this for a while. And if Cool Guru takes the time and you look at the early legislation, I'd invite you to check out, I think it's section 6, item 51A, and you will see that in the early versions of end of 2025, never included the two words making arrangements. But sadly, it does include those words in the current changes that occurred and affect everybody by the end of March 2026. Making arrangements. And that, therefore, put Dr. Zoo in the situation. There was two things we could do. We could continue not having to worry about being registered as a virtual asset service provider, which is what's suggested here by Cool Guru. Or alternatively, we could do the hard yards and decide that, look, let's get registered. Let's be a leader in this space rather than sitting back and then trying to take on litigation as a result of it. That's why we made the call. Dr. Zoo made the call that we've come this far. We haven't lost any coins and monies by other exchanges that have come to fruition. In fact, if you go to the latest update is on social media, you can see that there's absolutely some people livid losing squillions of dollars, even with the exchanges that said they're shutting down. They've stopped the withdrawals. Now, that is the biggest fear factor. What's the good of Dr. Zoo going through all this stuff, locking and loading, buying his own debt back so he could run his own bankruptcy, which he did, trigger the ability to have a document in place that allows him to fight and unleash when he's ready the High Court case for the $4.3 billion, which relates to the lottery, bring those dreams to fruition, bring those to a tokenization that can now happen through and list through Zutopia. What's the point of doing all that and then some fruitcake in some ridiculous jurisdiction running an exchange, suddenly it says you can't withdraw your 100 million, Dr. Zoo? I mean, you have got to be kidding. That is just some crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So that's what led Dr. Zoo to say, look, let's build this out at great expense, which is it has been a huge cost actually, because no one in the world has a thing that is or resembles anything like what you are seeing with Zutopia. There's not any look again. If Satoshi's there, or there's the CZ is the founder of Binance, or one of these characters want to come along and say what you're saying is wrong, Dr. Zoo, I will gladly admit at any point of being pointed out if I'm wrong. Unlike, as I said, Albo doesn't want to admit that he was really thinking in his mind about avocados and not melons. What do? So, if you think of that, then that's the point of which Dr. Zoo says he would gladly point that out and change his mind in relation to it. So, no, didn't matter, not doing that. And that's why we see the law had changed by the end of March. It started in January, end of March, those two words, making arrangements. You can look that up yourself. If you go to the latest amendments of the AML CTF Act of 2006, you will see in Section 6, 51A, it sticks out like dog balls, two words, and that changed the whole dynamic of registration. So we only really started, for the benefit of everybody and in a positive light for Cool Guru's understanding, we only started looking at registering the need of Zutopia as soon as we had that news in late January, which then triggered all the other stuff that we were doing. And again, a lot of this comes back because of the approach that we get caught up in from around the world, which relates to trying to slow down the AML risks. And it's driven by policymakers and the FATF, as I said earlier. So, I mean, look, Dr. Zoo has an ultimate solution. I've actually put this on the table, and I've raised this at a couple of conferences a couple of years ago now, it might be a year ago. There's a great conference coming up called Backing the Punt. That's, I think, around early September in Melbourne. If you get a chance, you should. It's worthwhile getting a ticket. Dr. Zoo was giving a couple of speeches there from the floor, and I raised the point that if the banks did their jobs properly and they identified every person that needs a bank account, and you get rid of cash, eliminate cash, get rid of it, Gonski, just have electronic money. You can also have a basis of transferability using a fraction of a Zucoin if the government got its head on it. As I've said before, you could have a 1% tax regime in the entire country. That would raise about $1.2 trillion. You could get rid of all these other bits and bobs in the government. Especially, you don't need to worry about collecting tax because it'll be automatically collected at the point of every transaction. There's about $350 billion of cash per day that wouldn't be needed, go through the electronic system, and there wouldn't be a single tax act. There wouldn't be any CGT. There wouldn't be any land tax. There'd be no stamp duties tax. There would be no fringe benefits taxes. There would never, ever be a tax return ever filled out by anyone. You either spend or you save. The country gets the money, and you're $400 billion ahead of the curve, and you pay down the debt, and you get rid of $70 billion of wombats that are trying to chase money because there's no tax act. There would be no need for the federal courts to be worrying about 27,000 bankrupts a year. All that vaporises. You could focus on what matters to society. You could focus on money going to the states to fill up the potholes in Victoria, cut the debt down there, build hospitals, roads, services, all those wonderful things. And as a result of that, you wouldn't need to worry about the hundreds of billions spent, trillions of dollars globally on AML, the anti-money laundering laws, because the banks should be doing their work. If the money is determined to be from good sources and good people in banks, then if you go and spend it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you worry about other people looking at the flows to try and determine the outcome of those people in relation to those funds for source of funds. Think about it. If you're going to buy a house, the bank should be doing its homework, and the money should be good money at the time of which you have signed up to the bank. If you've got the money on loan, or you've received the money from the bank, or you've got your own money in the bank, they should have done their job. You go and buy the house. What possible benefit could it be that the accountant needs to do a KYC on you again, and then the real estate agent needs to do another KYC, and then the solicitors do another KYC? I was talking about this with a great man from up north just the other day, and he went through 3 processes just to work out how to then move his money from the bank to get his house. Now, this is all stemming from the type of laws that are created without any thought or input, because we have these people in power that evolve from winning votes from you guys, all of us. They're good people. They're great people. If you can say that you can look at anybody in government that could run BHP as a CEO, then my word, let them stay in Parliament. In the meantime, these laws get passed. And that's what happened. Circling back to me old mate Cool Guru, nothing to do with the sufferings or anything from anybody, but prior to 2025, Zutopia did not need to be registered as a DCE. Not at all. Post that, yes, it did. And that was the immediate decision, like we did on the weekend. As soon as we had that trigger from Austrac, we were onto it. The boys were onto it. The lawyers were onto it. And within 24 hours, we've pushed out the response and the appropriate material required by Austrac. So, yes, indeed. So just that's a good question, and very happy to have Cool with us. And you keep up your homework. You keep up your homework. And I was going to raise this today. We've got KZ's come in and talks about crypto link, and that was on my little agenda. So we're starting to get a few Nostradamuses here into the system. So KZ is talking about Austrac suspended the virtual asset service provider registration of CryptoLink for 3 months, starting from August 9, 2026. The suspension forced the shutdown of their network of 96 crypto auto machines due to threshold transaction reporting failures. Now, just on that, in case you're not aware, we're not caught by TTR reports, that is threshold transaction reports. That's to do with actual cash. So if you're dealing with cash in excess of 10,000, and no doubt you've been down this road before, you've gone in and had a few bob tucked under the bed because grandma saved up some money and you end up in trouble. It's a bit of an irony, actually. Dr. Zoo was listening to the Parliament the other day. This is what I do in my spare time for the benefit of all Zuconians, is listen to ridiculous shows like what happens in Parliament. But they were talking about preserving for elderly people and others that we still must have cash in Australia. Now, that's okay, but the limits are so extraordinary, it's unbelievable, because they talk about, oh, well, if the internet goes down and the world comes to an end because of a solar flare and nobody can trade or barter or do anything, then we're in real trouble, let's keep some cash. And one young person in the Senate there said, well, this is great because money floats. In a drought, you've got your money floating with you. Very important. The silly nonsense about it, though, is that because of the limitations that were put in play, it's a turn-off because there's so much rigmarole to go through on the cash side of it. We get caught up. So either have it or don't have it. And I think the reality was, out of the outcome of that, was that if you spend $500 or less at the supermarket, you're okay, because then it relates to all sorts of issues. There's only pretty well one national provider of delivery of cash through ATM machines around the world, around Australia rather. All the cash that's got to be loaded into supermarkets and things, it becomes a headache, and it is a real nightmare in that regard. So the TTR reports that affected CryptoLink was because they weren't reporting correctly. They already had a warning notice. They had a bit of a warning notice in 2025 from what Dr. Zoo had read, and they were on a enforceable undertaking, they call that. Yeah, so Austrac had a enforceable undertaking in October of 2025 in relation to the businesses, which is these ATM machines with, obviously, you've only got cash in them, so there's no, in that sense, except for the nature of the way in which the crypto moves into the machines or from the machines. And they got issued with a $56,340 infringement notice at the time. But let me say this, if they hadn't and it's still up for grabs because the Austrac CEO, from what Dr. Zhu had read, particularly in relation to this breach or these breaches, there is provision in there. Dr. Zhu saw that the total fines that could affect CryptoLink, and I would suggest to you it's not a massive corporation in any stretch. I have looked at the website and they have these 96 machines, and you can make money from them, but it's pretty tight. If you think about the last time you use an ATM machine, it really becomes in a great sense the percentage that you make per withdrawal. Now, if you're silly enough to withdraw $40 and you pay a $2.50 fee, you do the maths on the percentage. So generally, what you should do is, pull out $100 and you're only paying 2.5%, or $200 or $400. Now you've got daily cap limits. They sort of sit at some, depending on your cards, might be $1,000, might be $2,000. And most people don't really want to run around saying they're going to withdraw $1,000 because they haven't got it. So you tend to pull out a smaller amount with a higher percentage. That's how they make their money. Now, I've got no idea what CryptoLink has in its reserve firepower, but it is a compliant, under the current law, a virtual asset service provider, was a DCE as well, as what our great mate there has said, Cool Guru, who's referring to earlier legislation of no relevance to us, but nevertheless, if you look at that structure, I would be blown away if they could afford the next round of penalties that Austrac has indicated that could happen to CryptoLink, which includes criminal charges and potential fines of $33 million. Now, that's a game changer. Wow, we don't want that. Now, you might think that's all right because Dr. Zhu, as a billionaire, would gladly dish that out on a fine every day of the week. That's a bit like poor old Elon, or Meta. Meta doesn't mind paying $1 billion in fines to the EU. Dr. Zhu thinks it could be money better spent. I mean, could you imagine if we had a spare loose pocket of $1 billion and that's tied up in the liquidity support fund, and it buys coins back through the Zutopia marketplace legally and quite properly, and all of a sudden you've got the capacity to self-fulfill the delivery of the supply of coins through fractionalization, and you end up with bucket loads of more transactions, and suddenly instead of this young generation chasing little Pokemons and Pokemon cards, they're chasing real value as they get older because they're flat broke and they haven't got anywhere to go because of the Australian government policies that have taken them out of the market. And suddenly we're building wealth and businesses for everybody. See how that works? Unbelievable. But yes, quite right. That CryptoLink is a good example that if you are not strictly complying, you get a whack and then you get another whack. Now, I don't know where that's going to end up for these people, whoever owns CryptoLink, but that is the seriousness of what we're dealing with. And that is why Dr. Zhu took it seriously, because we had a lot of law. We were given the green light and cleared. I don't think Cool Guru's been looking at our website, but if you have a look at the original DCE provisions and the way in which Zucoins can move between normal wallets, and you can have your own sites and systems, as I said before, build it yourself. You don't need us here. You can create a global empire by building a new exchange if you so wish. Knock yourself out. That's the freedom. That's the beauty of sovereign control. That's what we love about it. You can do and create wealth yourself using the core engine of the Zucoins, the Zucoin wallet, and the split chain. It is beautiful. But we already had correct weight, having been investigated by Austrac, and that is on the website. Same with the ASIC, which is on the website. Now, at some stage, I mentioned this before, once you start tweaking the Zucoin and the Zu tokens, and by that I mean if you start to add what they call staking values, or you're putting into play some other return that could happen as a result of taking up your particular Zucoin or your particular Zu token, whatever you want to call it. And this is an area we talk about, that if the moment Dr. Zhu starts to get excited and get bored and wants to launch a takeover bid for SpaceX, because he can, not that he will, but he can, the balance sheet makes absolutely no sense to Dr. Zhu. But there are far more profitable companies that have some more firepower in terms of their net tangible asset backings and cash flows, etc. I was looking at the other little one the other day. Have a look at this one. Now, it's a company called Life 360. I'm not recommending anything. I'm just sharing you some facts. I was surprised because it is one of the ones that had an increase in profit, which was amazing. And what it does, it just produces those little tokens, I'm talking real ones, that monitor your location. So it's a location-based tokenization thing, and you attach it to your suitcase or your dog or your wife or whoever you want, put it under the car, and away you go, and it allows you to monitor the movement of whatever it's attached to, which is fantastic. Now, I didn't realise, because looking at balance sheets is a hobby, and profits and cash flows is another hobby based on mass marketing. And at the moment, in terms of net profit, it's making more money than SpaceX. They've got 100 million active users a month. Now, you don't need to be Einstein to work out what happens if you charge a $1.99 fee on that, or a $5.99 fee, or a $10 fee. A $10 fee as to the profit per month. Now, that's because you've got a globalized product that has accessibility to a global market that people need repeating use of. And that's where we fit in. If you've got a repeat market, which we can build now, which is the trading of tokens, which is merchant products that go directly to you, the consumer, instead of to Meta and all that, and they're aggregating all your data and making money, making a fortune out of you and making billions. I think I said on the show once before that Meta created bots that were artificial that generated in their own right $16 billion US of revenues. And it was all phony. Naughty. Actually, they got a big fine the other day for some of their content to do with kids' products and things. So you got to wonder. But that's why we focus so much. If you go back to the Zucoins.com and you look at the Zoo Vision, you'll see all of these pieces of the jigsaw starting to really come together. And it comes together because of what we've created and the way in which we've done the hard yards on the law. So it's not any grey areas we're talking about. Dr. Zoo's had some phenomenal court successes and losses over the journey, but you learn a lesson that it's as difficult as it is, it's best to try and obviously stay within the side of the guidelines. Don't cross that grey line, and we will get the benefits of it. But it can be painful. It can be painful because you are dealing with laws that don't necessarily make sense or shouldn't have been put in there in the first place, which is costing businesses. That's why Dr. Zoo produced a report on how to improve the global laws for AML, KYC, and how to reduce the hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions, because ironically, the last stats on putting all this in play, if you put all this in play and you're trying to capture the crooks, that is the tax avoiders and the cocaine dealers and all the rest of it, it's been a very poor outcome. It's been a very, very poor outcome globally as to what has happened in terms of putting these things in play. Now, at last count, in the analysis that Dr. Zoo recently did, it turns out that if you get the OECD reports yourself and you have a bit of a squiz, that at least 2.5% of the world's GDP to 5% possibly is still getting caught up with the crooks getting away with it. So it hasn't achieved the way it should achieve these things, and it's been very dismal. But look, Dr. Zoo's here to help. Zucoins and Split Chain can help with those processes, and you've seen the benefits of that when you see the way in which you can easily open your Zutopia wallet with just the connectivity that we have done between the Zucoin wallet, and it's brilliant. It is absolutely. Did I say earlier, everybody, that how shit hot the app is? Because that's it really is. It is unbelievable. If we can do anywhere near and take on Binance, and Binance is the biggest exchange in the world at their peak. I think they're still running at about $9 billion turnover a day. They're doing 12 billion at their peak. Then Dr. Zoo's entities would be somewhere in the order of anything from 10 to 120 million profit a day. How good's that? That's why we talk billionaire status. And there's incredible amounts of things that can be done with that in a very positive sense, in a half glass full sense. Lots and lots of things. I'll tackle a couple of more questions here. All good here in Greece. Fantastic, Greece, to have you on board. Wonderful place, a lot of incredible history. I tell you, if you don't understand the history, you will never understand the future, because one of the most extraordinary conquerors of mass adoption, as you may well be aware, Alexander the Great. How good was that? Westernizing the world with knowledge, yes, with government sort of stability, and then we go pear-shaped. But anyway, now let's have a look. Oh, cool, Guru, please. I don't know whether I'll go give you one more shot, because you just seem to be, here we go. But look, cool, Guru. This is the question, people. What I am saying is that it would have been simple to do what CoinSpot did to cover all situations at the time by just relying on the information that your solicitors sent Austrac that they accepted. Another thing I see, Ezybonds Pacific is the entity trading as Zutopia. Zutopia's Ezybonds submitted these VASP registration on the 12th of 5th. I notice Ezybonds goes back many, many years and was available to register. I just wish sometimes, Cool Guru, that you do a little bit more research, because it just doesn't. It's not helpful. But look, let's wear it. Let's answer the questions, and we'll get it. CoinSpot was completely different to both Ezybonds and the way in which we have Zutopia, which I've covered. I won't go over that again. It fell into a different legislative regime, which is, let's call it pre-December 2020-25. I think you've got your head on that now. That was to do with registrations as designated services at the time. They were called designated services, which related to the provision of digital currency exchanges. So there was no terminology of virtual asset service providers. Those things came about because of the FATF, the international components of the OECD, which we just talked about. So forget about CoinSpot. CoinSpot had to also transition into the new laws under the VASP, the VASP. Now, if you take another great Australian-based exchange, which was as close as you could get to peer-to-peer, Dr. Zu has talked about one of his contacts there, which is Morty. Morty had built L-Bait with his sister. They were registered just like CoinSpot and had trading, but were running escrow accounts. Now, obviously, they were fine up until the end of December 2025, and then they announced as they got into March it was all too hard and that they wouldn't be seeking registration as a virtual asset service provider. So unless you are registered as a virtual asset service provider, or you fall completely outside of Section 51A, Item 51A under Section 6 of the Act, you are shot to bits and must be registered. If you're not, you cannot trade, and you cannot allow the trading, because Dr. Zu goes to jail and cops a 30, 40, 50, or $100 million fine. And these fines are significant. In fact, the banks have paid out billions. Westpac and CommBank have been very naughty over that journey. And I think at one stage, Westpac, from memory, had 59 million breaches, which would have sent the bank down the toilet. And sadly, it's shareholders that pay for that, which ends up with retirees and super funds. And the biggest losers in this regulatory blitz is the individual, which is you. That's how it all works. You get to fund all this mess. So Ezybonds Pacific Limited, since 2013 from memory, has always been a designated remittance provider, filing compliance reports every year and all the suspicious transaction reports because of the business it's running. By having that in play, it's easy for Ezybonds Pacific, trading under the name and the trademarks and banners of Zutopia, which is where Zutopia was built, to continue with the money it spent in relation to those monitoring and services and the extent to which it went to be a compliant designated provider, moved to the next phase, which is to register as a VASP. So that's right. That's why it was filed on the 12th of May. So you're spot on there, Cool Guru. You're starting to get your head on it. It's fantastic to see, and not sure why your half glass empty continues, but that's the reality of the laws and how they came about. If you do have something you want to share, some words of wisdom, I would urgently recommend that you get in touch with your good friend Jackie Lambie and David Pocock and ask them why did they approve a change to item 51A by inserting the words making arrangements when everybody understood clearly what the exchanges at the time were caught up with, because we don't have any custodialship of anything. We don't fall with anything other than electronic notice that goes to the processing capacity of Stripe, which takes us well and truly outside of that. And look, it could very well be that a court would say, forget it. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense that Zutopia should be registered anyway, in reality, because it's not, it follows the spirit of the law, but it doesn't need to be caught up with what they're trying to encapsulate. That is bad money flowing around the world with the digital asset space coming out of banks, which the banks you'd think would be doing their job, that if person A has been checked out by a bank and money goes to person B that's been checked out by a bank, that the visibility of that transaction, it wouldn't matter what asset you buy. You could be buying bananas, or you could be buying wheat. You might be deciding to use your money from your bank to buy lots and lots of wheat because you think the world's coming to an end and you want to produce some bread, and that becomes almost a derivative as a future buying and storage in silos, and suddenly you, as a result of that action, need AUSTRAC to come in and put a plan in place that you must be compliant, because you could become a virtual asset service provider by default, which is why we have so many problems with the accounting bodies and legals and all that. It's just silly to think that those bodies are going to give any greater information on Cool Guru than what Cool Guru should be giving to the bank in the first place. But look, that's a matter for another day. That's a big philosophical flow. That's one of the papers that Dr. Zu has produced. We'll be able to happily share it to some submissions into Parliament at some stage. The reality is, as per the papers that were produced in the Senate by the coalition, it's a cost over 10 years of $13.4 billion to the business sector. And guess who pays for that? Cool Guru. That's what happens. That's what happens, everybody. There's a cost to the individual, and we wear it. So, in Cool Guru, I'm going to sort of wind you up here because you're just becoming silly. Now it's a bit ridiculous, but your question is, making arrangements has not affected CoinSpot registration currently. That's because they've complied with it from a DCE perspective. They were caught, we weren't. Hope you understand that. It's starting to make sense now. The best thing that you could possibly do is set up your own exchange and then go through the rigors of how you need to be registered and what's required. And it's not just a straight out exercise and saying, gee, I'm registered now. That's fantastic. Let's stop there. It costs a lot of money to maintain the processes for the AML requirements under the Act. It is a lot of money. Ezybonds have spent millions over the years. And just think about it. Once you start rolling that out, oh my Lord, you end up doing all sorts of password checks, and you have some of the best companies in the world that you bolt on, and it can cost you $250 per check. At the moment, we're down to the fee that we have in the Zutopia. That's a direct fee from and charged by Stripe. They have a level of business that's so great. That's why they're buying out businesses that are involved with stable coins, because there's a different scenario that could happen with those. And it all leads to one thing. Just put up with it. That's it. Put up with it. So that's the scenario there. What I will say, because it does raise and flag an interesting point as I'm getting closer to close time, Dr. Zu could have also made the call, and I put this on record as well. I've talked about it, but I'll put on record again. It was an easier outcome to simply block every Australian citizen from being able to trade on Zutopia. So you'd have to go on your own way and create your own little social media networks and use the current direct Zucoin to Zucoin, because that's got nothing to do with either AUSTRAC or ASIC, and you could build that up yourselves and just block every Australian. Now, as I said, if that happened and Australians who have been the biggest early adopters and risk takers as a percentage want to see some action and want to be part of the glory days, where we all believe and hope and want to see well past 1,000. It wouldn't be a good look if people knew that Dr. Zoo's flying in and out from around the world in his Gulfstream, having a great time. His trusts have suddenly got billions of dollars, and every Australian gets left like a shag on a rock with the inability to trade, because Austrac says that yes, you can open Zutopia, but not to Australian citizens, and you're stuffed, because we have no impediment on those rules, because the countries we're dealing with don't have the same clause of making arrangements in effect from the January 2026 period. So the solution was easy. We built up a whole new lot of new friends in India, South America, Europe, England, Mauritius, Thailand. Thailand would be fantastic. Just get ready up there, people in Thailand, because you've got a zero capital gain tax regime. Singapore, even better, Hong Kong, and the list goes on, and all of a sudden, not a single Australian gets to enjoy the fruits of their risk taking. That wouldn't be good. So we had other options, still do, but we do it the hard way. We do it together. We fire up together. We enjoy it together. And we all laugh about when we take great people like, and it's good to see, but people like Cool Guru will be on tour with us. We'll have a bit of a joke and a chuckle and a cuddle, and they'll be on the stage with us, and we'll laugh about some of these messages that are left, and the knowledge that's been happened and what's happened. But at the end of the day, where we sit today, right now, right here, is unbelievable. Everything has been delivered. The split chain is absolutely sensational for scalability, deliverable, capacity to have two tokens in there, even the humble little things like the messaging in the transfer of coins. It's the only two-factor confirmation between sender and receiver in the world. It's the only wallet that's easily downloadable with backup in terms of the downloads that you look after, you maintain. It's the only one that has the 32 decimal fractionalization, so that even at $1 million a coin, you can still transfer 10 cents or thereabouts, or buy goods and services from merchants. It's the connectivity with instant transferability that does not exist in the world of a layer one protocol like split chain. There's a lot more to come. The high level quantum protections we're working through while everybody sleeps at night. Robert is still going and building that out. We want that in late 2026. You've got Vitalik running around with his head up his ass trying to work out what to do and fix. And it is a nightmare. It is a nightmare. I mean, just so you know, imagine if you were excited about the Harmony 1 coin or 1 tokens. That's 1 ONE tokens just yesterday. And all of a sudden there was a big gaping hole in their protocol and their system, and some naughty person or persons decided that they could create unauthorized minting of another $4 billion worth of these coins, and all of a sudden it just floods the market. There's a 26%, 56% drop in the price of the coins in 24 hours. They're hitting now a low of 0.00057 of a cent. And the market capitalization has absolutely been smashed to bits. They've told the exchanges to stop the selling pressure, and they're going to do this and get away what they want to do. They want validators to upgrade, attack the cross-chain bridge that was attacked, and try and do a complete reversal back to the point prior to this particular hacking that happened. Now, that's just one example, and they've had incidents like this before with this particular product. They're trying to identify all the wallets they've gone into. There's a massive coordinated effort on that front. We don't want to be like that. We don't want a blockchain rollback, not that we could do it, because things are in order from the very beginning, and you get certainty when you start to trade. And with other, in fact, we've got a little program too that'll validate the verification of each wallet as it goes. That's a little surprise coming down the road too. Won't talk about that now. But you could be in Harmony. You could have the Harmony 1 coin, and you could be necking yourself this afternoon because it's all gone pear-shaped as a result of building the products and the protocol on sand, not on solid foundations that we've done over the journey. There we go. Now, I think that'll be it for the day. Welcome, Mekong. Fantastic again. Awesome to see on board. Cannot wait. I think, yes, you will be blown away, as I said at the beginning of the show. Enjoy when you get to the point of the trading switched on. Just sit tight. Let's really make this an easy road, because we are and will respond immediately if anything does come back with Austrac. It's a great sign that they've wanted this material. They did indicate in the email, as I've said, you can look at the emails again, about the not moving forward with the processes unless that documents were in place. That's a good sign. So once we get that, away we go. And we don't want to leave a single person behind with what we're doing whatsoever. We're all in it together, and we're all going to get the equal opportunity to trade. And that trade, there may be people out there that'll end up trading at 50 cents or $1, and there may be others that it starts to move and they regret as to they start to see the price going through the barriers. $100, $200, $400, $1,000 a coin, way you go. That's just Dr. Zoo's personal opinion. But as I said at the beginning of the show, had a bit of a tear in his eye, thinking about how unbelievable and what we've achieved and accomplished against other products in the world that are giving digital crypto and digital assets a bad name because of all the thefts and loss and all the negatives that come out of the industry. Yes, there have been speculators that have made money, but they're making it at the expense of others, which comes back to the good old Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. We don't like that. We want to see us all have a crack at becoming super wealthy at the same time. That's how I want to leave it with that, because the app is superb with the technology supporting it, and you will get the opportunity on that trading. You'll be addicted. I just caution you, make sure you've got a therapist lined up, because it was even last night, even though it wasn't real money, but playing with this app, it was addictive. I just don't know when I'm going to go to sleep, because you get engaged on the other side and you really want to play the game of trying to beat the other person, either down in price if you're a buyer or pushing it up if you are a seller. And it is a wonderful direct relationship in a marketplace that we haven't seen. It causes all sorts of problems for automation and bots and AI because of the way in which it operates through the incredible concepts of the Zucoin wallet, to the credit of our CTO, Robert Novak. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate that. And let's look forward to Monday. I will leave this with you. For those that are excited about tax-free planning, this is one bit of advice I can give. You could lose squillions on racehorses. You could make tax-free money. And the upside is extraordinary if you map that out. And maybe there'll be syndications of Zucoinian holders all around the world that get involved, because we're going to be meeting at zoo bars and doing all sorts of extraordinary things with our zoo shows and conferences across the board. That's the ultimate goal, bringing the community together. Anybody that's half glass empty will be not admitted. Others, it'll be just a full-on show of full glasses, and away we go, big time. For those that are interested, we've got a horse that's named Sunday Vendetta for obvious reasons. Sunday Vendetta, get that? That's the name of the horse. He's running at Pakenham, first start, out of a credible horse called Justify, from a Dam of the Dam. That's a Group 1 winning mare out of Macau. And let me say this, it's his first start in. We're looking for big things to happen, and watch him at Pakenham in race 3. I'll leave you with that. Cheers, everybody. Have a good one. Let's get into it. Any news, we get it before the shows. You will get it by email. You will be told, and the button will be pressed, and away we go. Cheers, everyone. Bye.